Who's that?
Okay. All right, awesome. All right, yeah. Kendra, let me know when you're ready. Go ahead. Okay. Welcome to the Sarpy County Board of Equalization meeting. Today's Friday, July 28, 2023 at 9 o'clock a.m. It's actually 9:05 a.m. Please silence all cell phones. The copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is located on the north wall of the county boardroom. We have present today Commissioners Kelly, Klug, Warren, Mixon, and Burmeister, along with our County Administrator Dan Hoynes, our County Clerk Deb Hotelling. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 4 is the regular equalization agenda. We had a total of, and I guess 4.1 is board action on property valuation protests, Form 422 on residential, commercial, and/or rural properties, 2023-1 through 2023-1209, excluding withdrawn, late, and duplicate filings with final determinations. And we'll hear in a minute from our coordinator, Barry Couch. We had a total of 1,209 protests this year that were filed with the county clerk. The recommendations of the referees have been received and reviewed by this board. A total of 42 protests will not be considered by this board. 10 protests were filed late, numbers 26, 1199 through 1206, and number 1209. 14 protests were withdrawn by protesters. That's numbers 72, 353, 1042, 1049, 1053, 1055, 1061, 1070, 1078, 1100, 1110, 1112, 1127, and 1128. One duplicate protest was filed, number 1082, and 17 protests were tied to special valuation applications. These were heard and finalized by the board on July 21st, 2023, and will not be addressed today. A complete listing of property valuation protests is on file in the office of the county clerk, number 2023-1 through 2023-1209. County Assessor Dan Pittman will address the board regarding evidence of record documents and official records on file in his office. So I'll invite Dan Pittman forward.
Good morning. Commissioner Mixon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, opening statements kind of changed through the years. They used to talk about the statutes and the regs, but you're all aware of that. A couple things. We had a chance to look at everything, all the board actions or all the referee recommendations. We have 3 we want you to reconsider, and I brought the paperwork and the appraisers here to have an open discussion with you about some changes we would like to make. And it's only 3 of them, so it's very small. I will read to you this piece of paper I handed to you, and this is for something that I'd like to do for next year about equalization. I'm going to read, this is just a definition of equalization from the Real Property Assessment Information Guide issued by the state. Equalization is a term commonly used for the requirement contained in the Nebraska Constitution that real property be valued uniformly proportionately. Equalization is a process by which the valuations of similar comparable properties are reviewed to assure that equivalent amenities receive equivalent consideration and treatment in the assessment process. There's approximately 5,500 acres of land in Sarpy County that hold a timber designation. Approximately 217 of these acres were given wasteland value via the actions of the referees appointed by the county board. Approximately 96% of the comparable land remains valued under the timber designation and are not equalized with those 217 acres that were changed to waste value. To meet our obligation to equalization and to resolve this difference that has persisted for several years, it's my intention to make a formal request of the county board to seek and hire a Nebraska General Certified Appraiser who specializes in the valuation of agricultural land in eastern Nebraska to provide a consultation on how our market identifies timberlands and the corresponding market values. By this method, I hope to attain a definition that we can agree on, thereby equalizing the valuation of such land across Sarpy County. So I think it's pretty straightforward. It's just we have a disagreement on how timberland should be handled. I did a presentation a short time back. Actually, I don't think it was a presentation. I just think it's something I emailed to you guys showing what I believe timber values really were from other counties. That didn't have much effect, and this still persists. And I'm not seeing on these write-ups from referees, some are pointing to a Turk case. They don't cite the case. I think I know the case, and if I'm right about which case they're referring to, I believe it's being misread, and it's not anything that should be impetus to support just wholesale changing GRT2 land to waste. But there's a way forward. We could just get some consultation from a third party that would give us both guidance on how to take care of this issue. And if we can both agree to that, then this won't be a problem in the future. So this is not for action today. This is for talk about in a couple of months or something like that.
What's GRT2? What?
Grass timber. So, if you might have a bean field, but there's usually runoff, and there might be timber, and there might be a runoff area like a creek that dries up or one that's spring fed that runs all the time. And you have to designate the use of all those lands. So that timber component is often in eastern Nebraska, because it's hilly, we often have some timber as a component of agricultural land. And GRT2 would be timber that has a canopy thin enough to where grass or some vegetation grows beneath it. Then the next category of timber would be where the canopy is too dense, where there's no undergrowth, so you can't graze or anything like that. It's really not wasteland, but it often borders wasteland, and we try to account for the waste portion of that. There was a taxpayer by the last name of Benson, and he got a little more wasteland added to his record by the referee, but I actually got on a four-wheeler with that guy and drove the entirety of his property. I mean, we drove the whole thing, and I want waste on this, I want waste on this, and we came to terms on what should be waste. There was one area that was not waste, it was just a stretch of timber, and that got changed by a referee to waste, but I was actually out there and walked that thing or rode that thing with a guy. But it's not a huge deal. It's just an equalization issue that we can take care of. There's a way forward without going to Turk or anything like that.
So to have a designation, I mean, just because it has trees, that doesn't give it a designation of timber, correct?
I'm sorry, was it?
Just because a part of the land has trees on it doesn't mean it should be designated timber, correct?
It has to be designated something.
Well, yes, but if the trees are there to prevent erosion, if it's in a draw. So again, I'm not smart enough to know the difference between, I think it's all a matter of perspective. One person looks at it and says that's timber, one person looks at it and says that's wasteland. If, to me, the differentiator is if the timber's being used as a product or it's being sold, then it's probably timberland, it's probably not wasteland. But if it's being used to control erosion and because, it runs down under. So for me, personally, when we have a discussion about whether it's timber or whether it's wasteland, I'd like to see the pictures of what we're talking about. Yeah. Because I have no earthly idea, if it's gonna be timber or it's gonna be wasteland if I can't put eyes on it. So I'm just saying that not as a critique, but just as a request, because to me, if I was a landowner and I had a draw and I had trees in there that help prevent erosion or further erosion from that draw getting deeper and deeper and more unusable, that's not timberland. That's wasteland.
Why is it?
And so it sounds to me like a lot of these differences of opinion are subjective. And so if I'm going to be asked to make a ruling as a Board of Equalization member on whether it should be timberland or it should be wasteland, I'd like to see the pictures of what we're talking about. So it's easier for me to make at least an educated judgment on which one it would happen to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and those pictures are online. You can zoom way into them. Most of them we go to personally and visit them because You can't tell from a lot of the aerials. But that's what this is all about, is getting a guy who is professional, who is less subjective, is more objective, and say he or she who's been appraising ag land in eastern Nebraska and has a general certified designation can tell us that this is how we look at it in the market. This thing that you call GRT2, maybe they'll say, hey, that's waste. And we agree on that, great. And then we put this issue to bed. But they would say, no, this is timber, and this is how we look at it in the market, and we'll both be educated.
Right.
So I think it's the best way forward. You know, you go take these things to Turk, and Turk says, well, you know, best we can tell, it's this. They're looking at aerials too. So that's just really not the way forward.
Well, you know, and since you mentioned Turk, I'll just make this statement now because it's probably going to come out anyways, sooner or later. We're not sending this Turk stuff is costing the taxpayers a lot of unnecessary dollars in legal representation and fees. And I just think it just doesn't make sense to spend that kind of money. You get a lawyer, we get a lawyer, everybody lawyers up, and nobody wins, especially the taxpayer usually, because these things drag out for 3 years. So my only request from the assessor's office is I'd never second guess your guys' judgment or your decisions, but there's a lot of gray in this business. You know, there are some black and white, but there's a lot of gray. And my request is when we're in the gray, I just hope we kind of try to favor the taxpayer for a change. Not for a change, as a matter of principle. Because Lord knows we pay enough taxes, so many taxes in this state, that now the governor's convening a working group to look at it, and there's some state senators down there to say, let's just get rid of property taxes because it doesn't work. It's not fair. It might be equalized across the county, but it's not equalized across the state, and that's never more obvious than when you're sitting in a metropolitan area and a house across the street of Harrison is evaluated different than the one south of the street. Shouldn't be that way, but it is. And so I just hope that, you know, I mean, government's supposed to serve people, not be an irritant. And so when we're in those gray areas, like, oh, is it timber, is it wasteland? If we have the subjectivity to make the call, we ought to make the call in favor of the taxpayer, unless it's obvious that that's not the right call.
But I think you would agree that we have to do it for all of them, not
Right.
just
I
a
agree.
handful. Okay.
I do agree with that.
Thank you.
I mean, everybody should be treated equally under the law, right? Or under the statutes, or under the mass appraisal system. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Pittman and Mr. Kelly probably hit on a few of the notes that but I'm going to be more specific. Your little graph here, the column 3, is that assessed value? It says value.
That would be the assessed value when it went into the process, and then the value when it came out of the process.
Okay, but both of those columns that say value are
yeah, and
assessed.
I could have put more there.
They're assessed value. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I look at this, and your column 3, and this gets back to what Mr. Kelly's saying. Column 3, you have $235,318.
Okay.
Okay? And this is how I look at stuff. I'm just giving you a different perspective.
Sure.
I look at the last column. It's $32,572.50 of assessed value. Take it times our tax levy.
Yeah.
That is $9,282. We are spending way too much money we're chasing $9,282.
Right.
So I'm just bringing that point to you. When we look at this, and I get assessed value, and obviously everything's going up. The assessed values have gone up quite a bit. But we have to start looking at what does that mean tax-wise as well. Now, the opening paragraph here, and Mr. Kelly alluded to this, that's a wonderful definition if this is applied across Nebraska in all 93 counties. But we're doing this by county, and it's not. So all of a sudden, the fairness and the equality that they're claiming, we really don't have. okay? You have it within this county, but I can go, and anybody here can look up on Sarpy County and Douglas County. And Sarpy County does a great job. You're out there every year, you're looking at it, you're reassessing. It doesn't happen in Douglas County. And it doesn't happen in Douglas County because obviously they have a lot more parcels. I get that, okay? But I can look, and their tax sometimes doesn't change. Their assessed value doesn't change on a property for 4 to 5 years. Now, is that your problem? No, okay? It's not. But it is a problem to the taxpayers of Sarpy County in this regard, because there are multiple taxing authorities that cross the county lines. And so if we're always on the cutting edge and we're on that higher side of the valuation, we're paying more taxes. Our taxpayers are paying and basically subsidizing the units that cross boundary lines because we are paying more. This is something we can't resolve today. We're here for a different reason, but we collectively have to start working together on this because it is really, it's really a disservice to our taxpayers. And I'm not charging that to you or anyone else. And I could charge it to this board as well. But collectively, we just need to look at this and we need to say, we want to do everything according to what you legally, state of Nebraska statutes tell you as an assessor to do, okay? But we also want to look at how that applies. If I could apply your first paragraph uniformly over the state of Nebraska, I would say, no problem, but we can't. It's just not there. It's not realistic. And so the whole property tax issue is complicated, I know. I just want to show you my perspective.
I understand.
And the Turk cases and everything, I don't think anybody's trying to compete or fight about these. We're just trying to say, is there some relief because the taxes, the values are high and our tax levy, even though the county has done a good job and we're a growing county and we're not perfect by any stretch, but we have other organizations, other taxing authorities, and you know, if people really looked at everything on their tax bill and they look in Sarpy County's only 12 to 13% of that tax bill that they're getting from your office, and they looked at the schools. I mean, there are all kinds of board meetings that taxing authorities have, and it seems like everyone would want to come hear more because it comes from our treasurer's office and your officer at the county level. So I'm just trying to say, hey, let's really take a hard look at this for next year. Your idea on the last paragraph, it would make all the sense in the world to me if we were talking about a major amount of money, but at $9,200, I think we're just, I don't know if that would be a wise spend of the money. And that's just my comment.
And I do appreciate your perspective, I really do. And that tax side of thing, you know, I'm an assessor, so I'm an appraiser, and we concentrate on the assessment side of the house. And you're right, when it comes down to taxes, it's not a lot of money. It's about an equalization issue. And so somebody in county government has to have a burden for equalization. And that's what I'm trying to do here, is to if you look at and I could have brought it, well, I'm sure it's in the stack, but where you get one parcel here and it's got this row of timber and it goes through this parcel here and this parcel here, and this one now, all that's waste, and this one here is timber, this one is timber. You know, the neighbors would go, that's not right, that's not fair, and we acknowledge that, but I think by this method we can agree to something and say, hey, from now on, we get GRT2 We may disagree as to whether it should be GRT2 or T1 or waste, but when we agree on its designation, here's what the value should be.
And I agree with your concept. I do. And my point is, though, there is a bit, we're all here working for the taxpayer.
Yeah.
And we really need to be focused on how much money is being spent when we have these disagreements. Yeah. And it's not only the $9,200 in the tax, as Mr. Kelly said, it's the lawyers, it's going to Turk, all of those things, all of those should be avoided at all costs, because it's costing, it's really a severe waste of taxpayer money, all in the concept of trying to be fair to the taxpayer. Or are we being fair to all the taxpayers? Then when we're spending their money in a different perspective or in a different way, that's really not in their best benefit. And again, we just need to collectively look at that. And I appreciate your comments, and I appreciate you coming up with saying, okay, here's an avenue that we can take that might help the situation.
Okay.
And I agree with the timber, waste timber, that I get it, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Do any other board members have any questions for Dan on this general topic at this point?
No, other than I agree it'd be a good thing if we could come up with an appraiser. I mean, we're going to have to mutually talk about that, figure out who would be a good person. But get this issue resolved once and for all is a good thing. But in regard to this list, I understand equalization, but I have a commitment to the taxpayer. And these are taxpayers who chose to protest. Anybody could have protested and been on this list. So I'm still going to have to vote to support these people. And although $9,000 is not a lot of money, that's $475 per taxpayer.
Yeah.
And that to me is still a considerable amount of money. So I appreciate your comments.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
If there's nothing more on this topic, just as a way forward, and I don't know what you have as far as your agenda, we had only three that we wanted to talk about. I brought the appraisers and the data we need. So whenever you're ready to do that, they're available.
Let's go ahead and do that now, Dan. I'll ask Barry whether he wants to make any comments on this general topic, and then we can have you present on those three. And then after that, just for reference of the timeline, if there are the taxpayers that have protested had an opportunity to speak with the assessor's office and with the referee to go over their protests. But if there are any taxpayers here today that want to be heard specifically by the board, I would ask you to come sit in the front here, and we'll address you after we get through Dan's presentation on those three topics. Dan, have at on the three.
Are those on a list in front of you?
I don't think we have a list of the three unless it came in late.
Well, then, if you're okay with it, Chairman, we'll go ahead and bring an appraiser up. We'll cite the protest number so you can get that in front of you, okay?
That would be great.
Are we talking
Unless, am I missing it? Is it?
A statement first.
apartment
Did Barry have a statement he wanted to make?
What?
Did Barry have a statement he wanted to make?
Those are changes.
Barry, I didn't miss that you wanted to make a statement, did I? Did you want to make a statement? Yeah. So while Dan's putting that together, we'll let Barry make a statement, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
Just general, these are kind of rough numbers. Total value protested was $1,774,000,000. Value changes were roughly about 80 million. So there were 289 changes, which represents about 4.5% of the total value that was lowered or changed. The assessor recommendations, out of that 80 million, they made 158 recommendations for changes, which represented 50 million. We did 131 recommendations for changes, which represented 29 million. Now, out of the assessor's total, 16 were granted green belt, which represented 19 million. The three largest changes were apartments by the assessor. 70% were residential protests, 21% were commercial. So we had a lot of people protest just because the percent changed. So, good.
Thanks so much. Okay. Did anybody else get three that Dan? Okay.
Just a quick comment, and this goes on to what Barry was just putting out here, but just to clarify and to make sure everybody understands, of that 289 that were out there, of these protests that we've looked at, the assessor and the referee came to the same conclusion on 158 of them. There's 131 of those where there's a difference, and the referee's asking for a lower valuation.
Perfect. And so just one more time, were there any taxpayers that wanted to be heard on their protest?
I do on my personal.
Okay. Why don't you come on up? We'd like to have, if you'll come to the podium, we need your name and your address. And then we just give a 2-minute time frame to present to the board.
Okay.
Thanks.
So my protest was number 23, and I had hail damage and wind damage to my home. I provided a copy of the insurance claim with the date of the loss, the date that it was approved.
Will you please state your name for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry, Sheila Carnes. Sorry about that.
And your address would be great. Thanks.
2115 Crest Ridge Drive. Okay, so I provided the insurance claim to the referee that shows the roof was totaled out. There was damage to the gutters as well. It gave an estimated replacement cost value on that. And the referee said assessor should inspect the property to determine the extent of hail damage. It's currently listed in average condition and did not change the value. There was another protest that was filed at 12118 South 51st Street, and it's protest number 236. The homeowner did not provide any documentation with the protest showing that there was hail damage, an estimated cost, anything like that, no photos. And the referee changed the assessed value by $15,000, stating the condition of the property should be adjusted due to the roof needing replaced of approximately $15,000 cost to cure. So I'm requesting that I be treated equally as the other protester did.
Thank you for your presentation. Can I just ask one question? Can you give me the number again of the cost of the repair?
On my home,
Yes, on your home.
it was, at the time that I had this, it was $26,424. It did end up costing, I just had it replaced this week, it ended up costing somewhere in the neighborhood of $30,000.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions for Ms. Carnes before?
Well, I do, and I don't know who it would pertain to, but when we're dealing with hail damage and everything, if yours was covered by insurance, I'm sure?
It was.
Okay, the other person, do you know the one you referenced, 236? If that was covered by insurance as well?
He stated that he did not have the money to pay the deductible for the insurance, I believe.
And that might be the reason, but I need to ask somebody else that has more expertise. It's just me thinking out loud. because I also had hail damage on my property, and there are a lot of people in Sarpy County that had hail damage, and if you have insurance, you have 1 year to have it fixed, and I don't know if hail damage requires us to drop the valuation because it's going to be fixed. You have 1 year to have it fixed. But again, I'm not that expert, so I would like to hear that from
Can I
someone.
speak on that?
Yeah, and my other comment is the other person, if he did not have his fixed, then maybe that qualifies, but again, I don't know. So go ahead.
What I was going to say is our assessed values are set as of January 1st. And at that time, my home still had a bad roof on it. I also have some leakage, that had gone through the drywall. This other person provided no photos, no documentation, no anything. They just stated in their protest. They also did not show up even in person.
Right. And see, where I can reference back as well is we had the floods in 2019, and we had a lot of people that had total loss on their homes, and were not able to get back into their homes, or were not able to rebuild them in a certain amount of time. And then there was special, consideration given. I don't know, and again, someone else can speak, whether it's our legal, whoever, on how it's handled when you just have, hail's fairly common in this state, unfortunately, but I don't know if there's a relief for that, and I'm just asking that question to the experts. So thank you, though.
Is it accurate to say at this point that your home has been fixed and then the other property that you referenced has not been repaired?
I have no idea if the other home has been repaired or not. I don't even know if there was actually hail damage to it, to be honest. The hail damage occurred on my property in June of last year, and it was not repaired until this week.
And that other property, the number was 236, you said?
236, protest number 236, yes.
Does anyone have questions for Ms. Carnes right now? Ms. Carnes, if you want to just have a seat in the front row there, I'll ask Mr. Pittman to respond first, and then I'll ask Mr. Couch to respond, and then we'll see if there are any other questions from there.
This is a tough one for me because she works with me.
Well, here, let me set the record straight. My house was damaged June as well. Probably June 5th, I think, was the event date of 2022, and mine was just repaired here in April of 23. I did not file a protest, but I was not aware, and that's what I'm asking. I just did not even correlate that there could be, that I could get a tax reduction because, or my assessed value could go down because I have damage on my roof just because I crossed the January 1 threshold. I knew I had 1 year to get my roof repaired and any damage. So, and I did that, and I just thought, okay, well, your value, unless I would have tried to sell the home with damage, but that doesn't make any sense when I carried the insurance. Of course, I would want to have my roof repaired before I sold it so I would get maximum value for it. So, go ahead.
Okay, well, let me say this. Let's talk about cost to cure. It's very common when we put a value on a property, when a taxpayer comes in and says, hey, let's just say I got a leaky basement and I went to Thrasher, and Thrasher said it's going to cost this to get it fixed. And if we look at that and everything looks above board, we might reduce the fair market value of that home by the cost to cure that defect, because we're trying to look at it like a buyer would. If I want to buy that house, I want that thing fixed first. So that's cost to cure. I think what Ms. Carnes was talking about was equalization in this case, that, hey, I'm saying cost to cure, you have another cost to cure one. You gave them allowance for curing a problem they stated they had. I gave you evidence of what it cost to cure mine, but you didn't. Have I stated that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. She's sitting right behind me. And she's an outstanding appraiser, so, but does that answer some of the questions about that? I think what Ms. Carnes is saying that, hey, equalization here, you treated one guy this way, I want to be treated like him because we're very similar, so. And the referee coordinator might have something to say about that, because some perspective on that too, so.
Okay, so, and I can just add this comment, I wasn't treated equally as well.
Well,
I did not
you're
vote.
under assessed anyhow, Commissioner Mixon, so we need to take a look at that.
I think you've been taking a look at it.
What was that address again?
You know it very well. My point is, I think the public then needs to be made aware of that, because she works in your office, and that also gives her, she also has access to more information. Everybody has the same access, but she has a little more skill in knowing that.
That's true,
okay?
very much so.
So, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just, this word equalization keeps coming up, and I keep saying that it is a very hard word to ever put into action. We try our best and we go forward, and that's all you can do, because you can almost say assessing is like art. It's in the eye of the beholder of what the value is to a certain degree, okay? So my comment here is, we need to let the public know then, if you have, anytime we have a storm come through and you have damage to your property, you can file a protest and say, hey, or call the assessor and say, I got damage to my property. I want to get my assessed value lowered until it's fixed.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this question again. I look at a June 5th storm date, and I look at an April the next year fixed date. We cross the January threshold.
Right.
Is that the only thing guiding that? It's a timing. It's really timing.
Sure, and as Ms. Carnes pointed out, it was the damage happened one year. We did cross that January 1. It was not fixed, so it was still that condition. So you could make an argument and say, hey, if I decided to put my home up for sale at the end of January, those conditions would have still been there, and the buyer would have taken that into consideration when they decided what to offer for the property. So,
Right, but now we're looking at, it's a secondary or another event, okay? And if the house isn't sold, then there's no issue. And it was always her intent, just like it was my intent, to have the property fixed. I have insurance, so it brings it back up to the assessed value that I have. Okay. And Mr. Pittman, regarding the assessed value on my home, it's real easy. I do this calculation because anybody that complains to me about assessed value, I just say, what's your value? And if I think it's undervalued, I say, I'll write you a check for it. Yeah. And they say, oh, well, wait, I would want more. Yeah. I said, then it's properly assessed. Yeah. So you always have to ask yourself the question, what's my assessed value? What can I sell the house for? Yeah. And if I can sell the house for more, then my assessment's either too low or it's appropriate or whatever.
Yeah, that's a way of simplifying it.
Yeah,
sure.
So thank you, and I appreciate that.
Does the existence of insurance does that go into your analysis of things at all?
What insurance?
Of homeowner's insurance to cover a claim for damage?
If there's a claim filed?
Yeah, if it was filed before that January date, does that come in
or even if they had it, but anyway.
It's, you're aware of that when you go to consider these things. I believe the appraiser in this case who set Ms. Carnes' value, which is one of her coworkers, took the approach that that's an insurance issue, the money would be forthcoming to fix it. And then Ms. Carnes' point is, yeah, sure, fine, but it's not fixed. And
as of that date.
If I went to sell it as of January 1, this is a condition it's in. So we don't see this often, but but we've boiled this down to an equalization issue now. We've treated one person who's similar in their case different than this person. So,
But let me ask this question real
Ask
quick,
Mr. Couch.
because I think this,
I want to get very.
your answer is going to probably solve this mystery, I think. So if I'm a person that I don't have insurance, or because obviously insurance wants you to fix it before they pay you the money. And so if I decide I'm not fixing it, that's a decision that could be treated differently, because now that condition is really going to it's really going to exist for quite a while until they fix it. Now, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. My point here is the insurance company gives you 1 year, and that 1 year is because when you have a fairly large hailstorm, you know how you have a swarm of contractors coming in to help out. There's only so many roofers, and they can only get so many completed. So I'm talking of a timing issue. Would this be an issue if June 5th, the roof's damaged, September 5th, the roof is fixed? No issue.
right, yeah, January 1st is our date.
Yeah, so I'm just saying this, and the claim is filed, because if you need to file your claim.
Yeah.
I don't know what the time frame of the filing, but it's probably 1 year, but then if you wait till the end of the year, you only have 1 year to have it fixed.
Yeah.
Completely fixed, where insurance will pay from the time of the incident, the storm incident. So I don't know,
Hey, Mr. Pittman,
Any thoughts on
Mr. Pittman?
Don't, yeah.
I just have one question. So I think what we're talking about here is hail damage, and that changes the condition of the property from, excellent to average or something like that, right?
No, we typically won't change the record itself. We'll just make a note in the record, correct me if I'm wrong, about the cost to cure, why we lowered it. We wouldn't lower the
Okay.
condition, would we, or would we?
Do a lump sum adjustment.
So it'll go in the record that the property value was lowered because of hail damage?
Right, and then we make a
So,
building.
so that in essence lowers the value of the house on a resale market, because if I'm buying a house and I look at anybody doing due diligence is going to check the property record. And if it says in there was hail damage before I purchase that house, first thing I do is inspect it and see if there was hail damage. If there was, I wouldn't buy it unless the sale price was adjudicated to compensate for it. I mean, I just don't know how we would ever have the ability to keep up with every hailstorm that cuts across the county. And yeah, it may be an equalization issue, but if we're annotating in the property tax record that the property valuation was lowered because of hail, there's a record trail now that documents that lowering. And so I think we do have equalization. I think if we're getting down to the point where, well, he said, she said, and I know they did, and I don't think we got what, the hundreds of thousands of property. We can't do that on a daily or even yearly basis. So.
Well, if you want to bring it home to what we have in front of us right now, and I'm not sure if the referee would have any comment, and then just for sake of discussion, say there's no comment from the referee further. What Ms. Carnes is saying is that she wants to be equalized, to be treated like we treated this other taxpayer. So if you agreed with that and said, hey, this does appear to be, make sense, you would rule to reduce her value by the cost to cure.
So with that, anybody that has, I think Gary made a good point as far as that January threshold. If somebody has hail damage and it's not fixed within a certain period of time, but the claims process is going, they have a contractor lined up, but because they didn't get out there in a certain amount of time, we should deduct the value of that house for that period of time and then raise it back up once the roof is replaced.
It's that magic date of January 1st, that snapshot you take. How does it sit on the 1st? And then when we're aware of that, okay, this person is claiming damage, we may not even know about the insurance situation. But if the damage is there and we think as appraisers that, yeah, that's gonna lower the value of that house, we'll go ahead and lower it. We'll make a building permit that says, hey, assessor, go out later the next year and see if they fix that thing yet, so we can put it back to full market value.
I'm just,
If I could make one comment, and then I'd like to listen to what the appraisers have. I'm going to support you. The same as I'm going to support everybody on the list that you showed me, those 19 people, because they protested, they got the reduction from the the referee. I'm going to support those people. Now, all of the rest of the people could have protested and didn't. I'm sorry, maybe next time, everybody that's ag will protest that. And maybe everybody that has hail damage will protest. So I'll support you. That 26,000 reduction on your property, but I'd also like to hear what Barry or somebody from his side has to say.
Anything else for me, or?
Any other questions for Dan? Okay, Mr. Couch, do you have comments here for us?
Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
There you got it.
Okay. In reviewing this, the assessor's comment, after reviewing the property record, market data, equitable data, protest filing submission, the assessor does not recommend an adjustment to the current valuation covered by insurance. My referee, Ted Panis, concurred. The assessor has inspected a lot of properties. When I told you they had those recommendations, we started early, but we had to stop because the assessor was out inspecting properties and making recommendations. So my thought was, if there is damage, the assessor should have gone out and taken a look at it. Other than that, I do not know what conversation occurred between the referee and the taxpayer. As far as the other property that's being claimed, I don't know what testimony was given. It's probably, they said the condition issue, and the referee said, okay. So with this, an insurance claim was submitted, but we didn't have any evidence of the damage. So we said dismiss.
So the county never received any evidence of the damage?
What we received, we received a Mutual of Omaha Insurance Company claim. The date of loss was 6/7/22. And it's got the claim on there.
how much of this information is available to the public that you're showing?
As far as,
Is all of that online that I'm
you know
looking?
what, you know what? It's obviously online to the assessor's office because she knew what the decision was.
Well, she works in the office, though. That's
Yeah,
my
I don't
point.
think,
Is
I don't
all of
think,
this
I don't think
information-
so.
Is all of this information online, and can all the rest of the public see it? No.
So Barry,
Okay.
on 236, was that value lowered because of damage to the house? Is there a comment
You know
on that?
what, and this is where, on this one, I thought maybe the taxpayer worked for the assessor's office. So it was kind of a case of, they probably ought to take a look at it. She's issues as a claim. It should have been looked at to see what the damage was.
So on,
On 236.
right,
Condition of the property should be adjusted due to roof needing replacement of approximately $15,000 to cure. With this one, there was no insurance. So if it sells, it's going to sell damaged. With the other one, there's insurance. If it sells, somebody's going to buy it knowing the roof will get fixed.
When you say that we had no evidence of the damage, is the statement from the insurance company not enough? When you say we need evidence, is it the assessor needs to go out and physically see what's wrong? The documentation from the insurance company doesn't surpass a threshold that we need to
The
determine the loss of
document from
valuation?
it was dated June of '22.
Uh-huh.
There's no evidence that it's been fixed. There's no evidence to the extent of the damage.
Well, the evidence isn't the evidence in the claim, the insurance information, and
That they're getting it repaired for that amount.
which, is there a more accurate?
I would like to see verification.
Well, I don't think the insurance company's going to be paying out just for
Oh,
the
I
sake of
understand.
paying out.
I understand.
But I mean, I think that's going to be our most
I
accurate
understand
number
that.
for the loss of property
And we
value.
had one case where they had provided an insurance estimate, and it was just absolutely amazing at the amount. It was supposedly hail damage, but the estimate also had interior damage of all kinds. It's like, how does that happen in a hailstorm?
So is it safe to say that because the county didn't go out there and see it with our own eyes, the county didn't do its due diligence in this scenario?
But when the county's saying the insurance, they're basically being reimbursed by the insurance. So if they sell the property, somebody's not buying the property with a damaged roof. It's going to have a fixed roof. So the county's saying it's taking care of itself. I'm saying, okay, I mean, there was an inspection, there's no evidence of damage. There was an insurance claim. The assessor took a pass on it. My referee did too.
So is that the appraisal, is that the standard? Is that the appraisal standard that's used? Is that the required appraisal standard? That if there's insurance, what's the standard when you're appraising? If there's insurance to cover damage, do you include a repaired thing, or
I
do
would
you?
like to, actually, appraisal-wise, the insurance claim is going to be the cost to cure. Valuation-wise, it may be more, it may be less. And that's where we like to take a look at it. Because it only may cost $15,000, it may be in condition. She also stated that it was leaking inside. There was no indication of that. I mean, that's where I say we would like, somebody should have inspected it to see what the extent of damage was.
I mean, it's certainly feasible to have damage inside from a hailstorm. If it damages your windowsills, they'll leak. And, I mean, I think it was 2019, around the end of June, we had that terrific hailstorm. And I mean, my point is that if this is in the record, that there was a hail damage, if the homeowner elected not to follow through on it, it will be known to the taxpayer, and it will lower the value of their home. So they may win by getting reduced taxes, but they're going to lose on valuation big time.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know what the right answer is here, but I mean, we're in the noise level. I mean, this is one taxpayer, one incident. She happened to protest, good for her. So I just say, well, let's just give her the benefit of the doubt, move on. And when the assessor goes out later this year and looks at her home and it's been fixed, he'll do what assessors are supposed to do. He'll correctly value it.
exactly. I mean, we're beating a dead dog, and the point is made. So at some point in time, I'm going to make a recommendation that we decrease the value of your home $26,000 and odd to equalize in this issue. But I also hope when the assessors go back out, they take a look at it, that it's got a brand-new roof. I've sold houses for 40 years. A house with a brand-new roof is worth more than a house that's got a 15-year-old roof.
Darn
for
right it
instance,
is.
In the state of Nebraska. So I hope also when they look at it, they take that into consideration.
And new windows, and new gutters.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
So I will make that
increases the value of
motion
your home.
at the proper time.
I just want to say, I don't think we ever got the answer to the question, what is the standard from either the assessor or the referee? And the reason I have a problem with that is because I don't have a problem with doing one thing on the people that protest, but when this comes up repeatedly, we need to know the answer to that question. How are these going to be treated on a regular basis? Is it, do you, if somebody's got an insurance claim, does that affect your value? You're going to take it down every year if they decide not to repair, if they decide to go do the repairs on January 2, I'm just confused by the answer to that question, actually. Dan, if you got a response, that'd be great.
Sure, and if you want to get it down to a standard, typically if there's what we call a legitimate cost to cure, we would deduct that from the market value for 1 year. So in this case, these are two coworkers. One had the area that the other person lived in. They disagreed on how to approach that. That appraiser stuck by their recommendation. This taxpayer, even though working for the assessor's office, used their right to protest and did. Didn't get any change, but went through the database to find other appeals, found one that showed that, hey, you treated this guy differently than I, and then insurance shouldn't be the issue. So the standard would be we would deduct cost to cure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
That
so
answers the
wait,
question
wait, wait.
straight up.
I'm just going to say, and I understand everything that's been said up here, but I really have a problem with this because she has I will call it inside information that no one else had access to in the public.
I think they do, Commissioner Mixon, because we get people every year that.
No, not to look in detail at somebody else's record and say why this person their claim was denied or they got a reduction. The public doesn't have that information.
Yeah.
Okay?
They would have to go looking for it. Yeah. Yeah.
You would have to know a specific property number. You would have to have a lot of information. She has inside information, okay, on this issue. And then the other thing is insurance is a cure. And I hear all of this, but again, you want to use that word equalization. I didn't file a protest because I don't have inside information, okay? I didn't file a protest because I didn't know that I could. My roof was damaged still at January 1. Okay, I'll take the number of, now, how much are we talking about here? And I screwed up my numbers on the first thing that we talked about. Your valuation of the, anyway, I can explain that. I screwed up. I didn't divide it by 100. So those amounts are so much lower that on that timber stuff that it's not even worth. I will give you the $92.82 that it all shakes out to be in tax wise. But so basically, I had almost $33,000 or $32,000 worth of damage on my roof.
Yeah.
What does that do for me? I would have saved $93 on taxes. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, if I would have protested this. So, and I know everything there, money is money, and taxes. We always like to reduce our taxes, but I'm just sharing my sentiments on it, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
Anything else?
I think we're good for this one for now. Now, do we have any other taxpayers that would like to present to the board on their particular protest? Seeing none, Dan, I think you have 3 you want to call to the board's attention. Is that accurate?
Right.
Commissioner Burmeister? You will?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There are photos on the packet. Morning, Commissioners. My name's Marty Becker. I'm an appraiser for the Assessor's Office. What I want to bring forward is a protest of 232 for parcel 011084480. During the course of reviewing what the referees had performed on various protests, we were looking at this one, and it appears that the referee may have mistakenly identified the mobile home at this location as a licensed motor vehicle trailer, such as you'd see on the very back page of this packet you have before you. In actuality, what is actually there is on page 2, the second page, is a mobile home. So what we are proposing that the amount of the mobile home, $4,238, that was deducted from the improvement value on this property, be added back in. If you look at page 1, that would be the proposed new value. Land would stay the same at $264,320. Building value would go to $429,691 for a total value of $694,011.
How many acres of land? How big's the land piece?
34.4 it looks like.
Okay.
Mhm,
All right, thank you.
Sure.
And there are multiple buildings on that property, right?
Yes, there are.
Okay.
That is correct.
Which one is this 232?
Any questions for Marty?
So your point is, this is not a licensed vehicle.
Yes, sir.
Could it be?
No.
No.
You can't put wheels under that thing, jack it up and move it?
You could, but it isn't. It's on piers and it's skirted.
So just, it says, 2022 was the last, I mean, did anybody go out there this year? 2020,
There, we have an aerial from March of 22. It was still there at that time,
March 23,
or 22.
22, okay. And we're talking about 2022 taxes, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
So, and I guess I'm a little familiar with this because I've owned lake property before. And oftentimes it'll be a mobile home, which will be skirted. And I can take the skirting off a mobile home in an hour if I don't want to keep it clean and do it well. I can just go around and rip it off. Now, the question is, to me, is it licensable? If I would buy that, can I pull the skirting off, knock it off the piers, jack it up, set it back down, and drive it to another lot? I mean, what's that?
Of course you could.
So what makes this not a licensed or licensable vehicle?
Because it is skirted and is on piers, and we do value mobile homes as residences in the state of Nebraska.
And so consistently across the county, if it's got skirting, it's considered real property
Yeah, that's correct, sir.
by appraisers.
Yep.
All right,
But in this state, yes.
yeah, all right. So that's different than most real estate. You know, it's still not considered, you can buy it separate from on a purchase agreement.
You
But
can, that's correct.
But appraisal, it's not treated that way.
Not for assessment purposes, no.
Okay.
Mr. Couch, anything to add here?
I'm Rob Ogden, Assistant Coordinator, and I happened to hear this hearing. And he produced a document that showed he was paying motor vehicle tax on this as a mobile home. Therefore, shouldn't be taxed both as real estate and as a mobile home. Mobile homes are really tough to do one way or the other, so that's the evidence I based it on. Any questions?
So you think it should stay the way that it currently is? Is that the opinion?
I received evidence that it was licensed as a mobile home. So licensed as a mobile home, he's paying the tax based on the motor vehicle tax. You can't have it be both real estate and non-real estate, so it's one or the other.
I'd like to hear from our legal on this. How does it, is there a dual purpose here, or can you?
Not gonna tax them twice.
I don't know. I get what you're saying, and if it's licensed as a vehicle, you don't want to do a double taxing of it. But the mobile home, typically when you set a mobile home, it's treated differently than if it's on wheels or a camper. And I get a camper is a different animal. A mobile home is mobile because you can move it, and obviously, but you usually set it and it stays in place.
I would defer to.
Yeah, I would like legal to just clarify why we have it taxed as a license, why it was able to be taxed as a licensed vehicle.
Well, I can't comment on the specifics, but I mean, if it's licensed as a vehicle, you are paying vehicle taxes on it. And I would ask what the evidence was that they received. I mean, if there was a tax statement, or if they just looked at the title, or what, I mean, because you would be paying it every year just as you would a car tax.
Right.
So that's, I think, if, what was received.
It was the evidence that he paid the mobile home motor vehicle tax for the year.
And they're up to date on the taxes, correct? Thank you.
But what's proper, in your opinion, for assessment purposes? Is it proper that it be, which one's the right one? For assessment purposes, is it properly a licensed vehicle, or is it properly home?
It's whichever the homeowner's done. If it's not licensed, it's going to be looked at as real estate.
So if all of those people that have mobile homes that are skirted and on jacks go get them licensed as vehicles, then they're vehicles?
As far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
And it would be no different than.
You have to
if
do
I've
it
got-
every year. to
Yeah,
license.
if I've got a camper and I park it on my property, I'm paying motor vehicle license on it. Now, if I jack it up and put a skirt around it, then according to the state, then it's real estate property. But if I still have a license, to me, that would supersede. So.
Is the evidence received in the BOE program, just like we saw on the insurance paperwork from the last protest? Do you guys have that? I think that would clear up the
I
question
think-
here specifically.
Personally, I don't remember if it was just a piece of paper that he gave me or if it was actually in the record. You could look in the record. You can,
Yeah, I don't have the, I mean, can you guys look in the record right there to see what was received? I think that's significant in this case.
I don't think we have access to that. I don't think we have access to that record, do we? I think these guys have access to it.
You can look it up right now.
Do we have, oh, we can?
I'm looking it up. What number was it?
232.
What are you looking for, Nicole? Well, I was looking for the receipt, if they were given a receipt of the licensing.
No, it would have been a paper thing that did not get scanned and put in, so.
So what's that, that walks like a duck and quacks like a duck? It's a duck? This is not a motor vehicle. It's got a porch, a deck, water, plumbing. It could be a motor vehicle, and when it becomes a motor vehicle again, then we should tax it differently. But to me, it's a house. clear and simple. And if the guy paid property or vehicle tax, we should reimburse him his vehicle tax and send him a new bill for his property tax. That's just my take as a normal guy here. I understand why you made your rule, though. That makes sense to me, but that thing don't look like no motor vehicle.
I agree with you, Don. I think it's important to make the right decision, which is a struggle, I think, apparently, but
My mistake was not getting it scanned, the evidence that he had.
even if you had it, I'm not sure for me it would make a difference. When they're accepting, when someone comes in and they pay to have it licensed, I'm not sure an analysis is done there. I mean, I don't know. I assume they just accept it, but our job is to make an analysis of what's proper under the standards. So, it's.
I think, and I agree with what you're saying, and again, we're looking at equalization, and then we're also looking at what is the intent or the use of this property, and it's not to drive it down the road. So we have to take that into consideration. If we don't, every mobile home park here in the county, they can go out and they might as well go to the motor vehicle and license their structure that they're living in and have no intent to really move it for whatever period of time.
If they hadn't licensed it, would your opinion be that would your opinion be the same as the assessor?
If it wasn't licensed, it'd be the same as the assessor.
Okay.
Commissioner Burmeister, can I just interject?
Sure.
Because you're talking, and when I used to do titles, the legislature changed this a while back. And they're deeming that, yes, they have to get a title, that's how they purchase it.
Right.
And then we would take that title, and actually we would let that go over to the Register of Deeds and just put it on file. And once they put the skirting and the tires and everything up on that, now we're deeming it a real estate. There was a big thing on this about 10 years ago. I don't mean to interject, but I used to work with this. So they do deem those now as real estate property. So until the time he would go to, but that's how they basically purchase those, is off of a title or an MSO. I just thought maybe that'd help.
Yeah, that's helpful. Anybody have any other questions for Rob? Okay, thank you so much. Marty or anybody from the assessor's office, anything you want to add? Okay.
From a legal standpoint, though, then how does that get treated?
It's a licensed vehicle.
I think if you want to tax it as real property, then if the owner does in fact have a tax from the treasurer's office for a vehicle, they could probably go and get a refund.
I don't want to do either for just one property, but I think consistently across the board, we better have a policy that figures this out, because that is not a motor home. And, but if he's paid taxes, we've already said it was, it'd be kind of hard to go back and change it today. But I agree with the assessor, that is not a motor home. And so I don't know what the process is here, if it's initiated from the treasurer's office or it comes from the assessor's office, but I think, and I don't think it's just related to this property. I think we need to take a across the board review and see who's gaming the system, so to speak. I mean, when you have a photo from 2014 and another photo from 2022, it's not a motor home. Okay, because the motorhomes don't generally have plumbing that runs into them, or porches and things like that. So I think I understand where you're coming from, Marty, but I think for the purpose of consistency, we got to stick with the referees. The guys paid taxes on it, but I think next year we got to fix this, and not just this, but I mean across the board. That's just my 2 cents.
It's a good 2 cents.
Well, it could be 3 cents.
It has to be fixed, because you're opening up a can of worms if we don't get it fixed and resolved. Because I could, again, of the stuff we've heard today, and I can come back and say, equality and all of this, and I want equalization, and that guy's got his, and he can register it. Why can't I register mine like that?
Is this the proper place to fix it? Or is this something that would be done at a later date?
If I can make a comment there, we have trailer parks. We used to have Paradise Park that we spent a lot of time with, and these become improvements on leased land. Usually they lease the land from the guy that owns the mobile home park, and they put it there and it stays, and it's their residence. Anything that seems mobile in nature, we have no interest in valuing as real property, because we can go to the DMV and find out if the guy licenses it and moves it around. But in this case, this I think it's the first year that this taxpayer brought this up. It's been there for years, and it's been valued as real estate, not on lease land. He owns the land. It's a piece of real property, not personal property or motor vehicles.
I just think it has to have there has to be a legal element to this, because you can't just, if the guy's paying motor vehicle tax and has for years, it sounds like, there's got to be a legal review or a process that says, hey, you are no longer eligible for that because this is not a motor home anymore. It's real property. It's fixed. And then they have to give that guidance to the treasurer so that they don't reissue a motor vehicle,
Commissioner, I'm not aware of an exact process to go and remove someone's license for a vehicle. In this instance, it seems like if you were to tax it as property, as real property, and he's already paid motor vehicle tax, he could come in and request a refund from the treasurer saying he already paid this. But and obviously this is an issue we need to look into, but I'm not aware of any specific way to go and actively say, we're taking that from you. I mean.
And that's good, that's fine, but then I guess what I would suggest is that we get with the treasurer and assessor, and anytime anybody comes in to license a motor vehicle, we have the assessor go out and review the property and make sure that it is a motor vehicle, and if it isn't, don't issue them.
Sure. In this case, I don't see anything in the record that shows he's paid any taxes on a motor vehicle. And I've known this guy for years, and we talk every year, and this has never come up. And I think your earlier argument was a good one, that thing's got a porch on it and a water meter.
I'm with you. I'm with you. But if I've already paid taxes on something, and then you come back to me and say, oh, no, now you got to pay more taxes, I don't think any of us would like that, would we?
Well, I think legal said we'll give him his money back for his license plates.
But it's a legal process to me. Because if I just tell somebody, hey, go in, we'll give you your money back, and they go down to the treasurer goes, I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It gets a little too squishy for me. That's why I think when Commissioner Burmeister said, hey, what's the process here? I think she's got a point, because it's got to be the same for everybody, not just this guy.
I agree.
You're absolutely right. That is not a motorhome, okay?
Yeah.
But
I think,
given the fact that the guy has already paid property tax or a wheel tax on it or motor vehicle tax, I don't see how we can do much about it this year.
I think for me personally, we should make the decision that is the correct legal decision, but I think we can instruct the assessor in the change to notify the taxpayer that they're entitled to a refund if they paid tax and plates on the other side. And I think we can just do that as part of our motion.
As long as we're authorized to do that, but I don't know that we are.
I've got his
Board of
business card. I
Equalization.
can contact him and.
I think only the treasurer can make that
I mean, there's no
determination.
prohibition on us putting that in our motion, is there, Nicole?
No, I don't believe so. I mean, to be honest, I'm kind of going off on, if you sell a car in the middle of the year and you've already paid taxes, you do get a refund at the time you turn in your other plates, right? So this is kind of the process I'm thinking of, but I don't know the specific legality of it yet. But I don't believe there's anything wrong with this approach.
I mean, if if our motion requires the notification, I think that solves the problem of the taxpayer trying to explain to the treasurer what the problem is, and that gets them to the right person to fix it. I'm a little afraid to make just do it because it's a pain when it's wrong, I guess, is what I'm struggling with. I don't want to keep it being wrong because that sets a precedence for other people. But if you go out and put a license plate on your home that's skirted and sitting on blocks and's got plumbing, that's, something else now, so.
Good idea.
But every time you pull into a camper park, you have plumbing. You attach to the water, you attach to the sewer. The only difference is this is now skirted so that you can insulate, and it's the same thing. Within hours, it could be up off skids and pulled.
I didn't comment on whether I agreed with what the rule of law is. I just think we should follow what it is. Barry, did you have other comments?
Yeah, I do. If you read the decision, total value after removal of the mobile home is $42.38. If you're going to put it back on, it's $42.38. A total adjustment of $50,000 was made for economic and functional obsolescence of the other properties. So we're talking about $4,238.
Anything else on this topic or any other questions from commissioners? Okay, did you have others, Dan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, again, I'm Sheila with the Assessor's Office. This is Greg Gabe. She's also an appraiser with the Assessor's Office. This is for Protest 1000, which is 6804 Ridgewood Drive, a two-story home in Settlers Creek. We are requesting that the assessed value of the subject property be restored to the assessor's recommended value. And the reason we're requesting this is there were sales that were provided by the owner to the Board of Equalization and used by the referee that are not located in the subject neighborhood, Settlers Creek. They chose to lower the assessed value of this home based on these sales outside the neighborhood when there were 9 sales of two-story homes available in Settlers Creek that were used to establish our value.
Questions for Sheila from commissioners? Okay. Mr. Couch, any comments on this one or explanation, response?
My referee reviewed this. He's listed the properties he's looked at. Basically, she's testifying to evidence that was after the fact. This was not pointed out during the hearing. Her comment was no evidence provided. The protester selected not to provide evidence. We could present it during the hearing. My referee looked at their evidence and said make a decision. So basically, your call.
Why did they use sales outside of why'd they use sales outside of the neighborhood, and is that proper?
No, he just pulled comparable looking properties to his. My appraiser reviewed it and said, okay.
Okay, is there like a standard or something? Do you have to look within a certain geographic area?
try to stay in the same economic area. So if there's not enough sales, and she has it listed, 9 two-story sales during the state mandated timeframe. I didn't sit down and look at all of these, so I don't know if they're in the same subdivision or outside subdivision. Basically, and that's where it could be outside the subdivision, but it could be in a comparable area, which would be acceptable also.
And so so either meets the required standard to look outside the subdivision
If you're in a
area?
comparable area.
Okay. And is it okay to disregard sales within the subdivision area?
That's where, based on the owner's comparable property, subject is overvalued, that's where, was this a valuation or equalization? More of an equalization.
Just looking at this property on Zillow.
So can I just make a comment real quick?
Go ahead.
This area is a little tricky, okay? I've had some personal experience with this area. This area was sold as a upper middle class development, and the first people that came in here built some very nice homes, and then a nationwide builder came in here and started building houses that weren't quite the same. They had, 1-foot eaves and no framing around the window, just typical cost-cutting things. So if you're comparing sales data in the same area, it can be remarkably different depending on who built the house. And that isn't consistent across Sarpy County, but it is a real big problem in this area. So I just want to make sure that Board of Equalization, I just wanted to jog their memory because I know they're all familiar with it. I personally met with the developer and said, you made some promises to people. They bought lots, they built houses, and then all of a sudden they see this national builder come in behind them and essentially lower the value of the whole area through cost-cutting measures. So when I look at comparables from that, it doesn't mean a whole lot to me unless I know who the builder is. But I can pretty much figure it out by looking at these comparables. So I don't know that it's relevant in this case. I think we just let this ride, but I think we got a big problem up there in that area because anybody can look across the street and say, well, he's taxed a lot lower than me. Well, yeah, he is because his house isn't as nice as yours, okay? And so I don't know. This one's a little tricky. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
I'm just going to add some data. Zillow, and it's not gospel, but Zillow has this at $520,000 with a range of $494 to $546. Square footage cost $136, and then this home was sold for $330,000 on the 9th of January 2013. The lot was sold in 2012 at $45,000. I think they have a $64,000 value on the lot. And yes, taxes are showing to what you have here, or the assessed value anyway. So that's just data. That's just additional data.
Sure.
I just wanted to point out a couple of things. So I know you were addressing the other builder that kind of came in at the late stages of the development of that subdivision.
Well, I wouldn't say late stages. I'd say he came in right at right after the development started. Initially, there were probably a dozen houses in there, and they were above average, way above average, nice homes. And then when the national builder came in, things started popping up that didn't look anything like those. And that's the only point I'm making. So when you're doing comparables in the same subdivision, and this creek, Settlers Creek, I think it's called,
Settlers Creek.
there's a remarkable amount of difference depending on who built the house. That's all I'm saying. So if I'm using that as a basis for generating an average valuation, and I'm bringing in some of those custom-built houses that were 2 stories that were built initially, that's not a good comparison in my mind. So,
Right. Most of the homes that are on that sale list are of similar quality
well, I don't know that. How would I know that? How would anybody know that?
by looking at the property.
Go ahead. I'll let you finish your argument, but.
You had
you're not gonna
also
convince me,
mentioned, are any of these by the same builder? And there was one sale in there that was built by the same builder. It is the property at 6651 Cara Drive. Make sure I got the right one here.
$485,000 is sales price.
Yes. Yes, $485,000.
That similar square footage?
It is a larger home, I believe. Has unfinished basement, though. The subject property does have finished basement.
And how much finish in the basement on the,
I don't have the subject record in front of me. I'm thinking it was somewhere around 1,000 square foot of finish in the
and
basement.
what do you typically value finished square footage in a basement at? It's not the same as the upper level, of
Right,
course.
that's correct. That's correct.
And then is it proper to use, is it okay in the standards to use properties that are similar, that are outside the neighborhood? Is that okay according to the standards?
As long as you're considering the locational differences and influences, yes. And I'm not sure that that was done in this case. As a typical appraisal practice, you would utilize comparable sales within the neighborhood before you would go outside of the neighborhood. You know, if there's nothing available, then you're going to expand your search to other neighborhoods to look for comparable type properties.
I'm just going to ask one more question because what the referee is suggesting is 381,600. And there's only one on this sheet that's close, and that's the very first one. That's 6823 Ridgewood Drive, and that's 382,665. That has a floor area finished of 2725, does not show a finish in the basement.
Correct. That's
And
the
then
oldest.
all the other ones start at 410, I think is the lowest, and go on up to 485 as being the highest, and the 485 is the one that was built by the same builder
Correct.
that you're referencing.
There's also a couple story and a halves in here, and a story and a half's not a 2-story. It might have a second story, but the master bedroom's on the main level, and that's a huge difference. So I don't even know how those could be used as comparables on a 2-story.
The sales sheet I have right here shows all of these properties are 2 stories, similar
It
to
says
the
1.5
subject.
right here, unless I'm reading this
The
wrong.
back sheet she's referencing, Don. The comparables on the back sheet all say 2 stories.
Oh, yeah, the ones you're looking at are the ones that were provided by the homeowner,
Okay, I got you.
that were 1.5
Thanks.
stories.
I'm with you now, thank you.
Any other questions by commissioners? Go ahead, Dan.
Did you have any other questions?
Any other questions for Sheila?
Hey, when you have to make an important decision and you have to talk to somebody or interrogate somebody about facts that help you make your decision, I know the board has shown some interest in who they're talking to. Sheila Carnes is a certified residential appraiser in Nebraska, has been appraising houses for years before she ever came here. Greg Gage is a certified general appraiser in Nebraska, has been appraising houses for years before he came here. they're odd ducks for an assessor's office. We usually don't get people that heavily credentialed. We just have to be such a great place to work, they wanted to be here. But anyhow, I gotta tell you, when you're talking to those two, I don't know anybody that's got greater qualifications in the residential market than those two guys. And so I had to put that forward. Here comes more credentials over here, but it's important. I think we have to make a decision. Thanks.
I was the one that heard this one, and the subject is a 1.5 story. The subject's quality and condition of what I looked at, that's why I looked outside of the neighborhood at more, as far as size, it did have a finished basement area, as did other sales. I am a certified general appraiser. I've been appraising property since 1979 in the state of Nebraska.
Young guy.
I served as assessor in another county, just a little west and south of us. This is just my opinion, but I feel strongly about this opinion, that the value is what it is.
Thank you. Any questions?
No, this, again, I'm just point comment where Mr. Pittman mentioned, for next year, it would really be helpful if we worked out something that we could agree upon on the waste ground versus tree ground. Same thing, when I get this stuff, the day of the meeting, and am expected to make decisions, when I don't have access to the information that you do or that they do, I mean, I've got to fall back into a system that has the best that I know with is to stick by the person that we hired. So I'm going to pretty much vote to follow the referee's opinions. I appreciate your expertise that you bring to us, but I mean, was this information available yesterday?
Yes, it was provided.
Okay, so, and it was provided to us.
It was not provided to us till this morning. We did not have.
Yeah, I haven't looked at my email yet today. I haven't had time.
If we
so-
received it, we just sent it out to you, but Jackie just handed us ours this morning.
Okay, well, we sent it to your legal counsel last night. Your legal counsel's out of town. Andy, I didn't get an
Yeah.
email back, so I guess I should have CC'd BOE also.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, I mean, I would like to come prepared, and I know I can speak for Commissioner Burmeister on that as well, in that I feel better if I've had a chance to prepare myself other than just make a decision. So, thank you.
I would like to comment. We did receive that yesterday. Annie forwarded it to me, and I was unaware that you guys wanted it early. So next time we do that, we'll make sure that you get it early.
Yeah, again,
Well,
procedural.
It goes through the clerk's office.
Yes.
We've got to know what they've got on record.
No problem.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Along those lines, we're kind of working through as a board on processes. And this is a hard one because you had 1,200 protests this year. But while we're in the thick of this, of where we are right now, it'd be good if we were all kind of thinking about what can we do to be earlier in the process, particularly for the board, but that requires that, Barry be early and Dan be early and the clerk be earlier than what we are, and it's really hard because it's so squeezed on the timing, so I know everybody's working on it, but while we're in this part of the process, it'd be good to think about it, and if people think of things there that might help us back it off a little so that we've got a little more time, just shoot that to me in an email because I'm working on those procedures a little bit.
And this is the subject property we're talking about right now. It is a 1.5 story.
No, that is not correct. It's a 2-story. It has similar square footage on both the main level and second level. It's a home that it was built by Castlebridge Homes. I'm very, very, very familiar with their homes.
Typically on a 2-story, you're stacked. So you usually have equal amount of square footage, first floor, second floor. Does this one
Relatively
have that?
similar, yes.
This one has that?
Yes. It also typically, without being,
Because like the 1.5 story, it doesn't have as much square footage. It's a different layout a little bit. But this is stacked and we have the same equal amount. This is a true 2-story. Is that
it's
correct?
a true 2-story, yes.
I thought I heard it was a 1.5 story.
I wish,
I just want to clarify that before I make it.
There is it is a two-story. In this floor plan, the master bedroom is on the second level. Similar square footage on both the main level and second
Okay, when
level.
you say similar, is it the same?
It's not exact. No.
Okay, what's the top floor?
I wish I had so
I mean,
Bring a property record card and add it on in the submitted there
it's
program.
about 12, I don't have the sketch with the dimensions on it right here. 1295 on the main, approximately 2544 total.
Doesn't clear it. It's 1,000, Jackie, if you need that. It's not adjusting for me.
Try to get clear and see if that wipes it out.
Clear?
Yeah.
and they don't always have to be exact, but they have to be very close to be a two-story.
Yeah,
You know, there
it's
could
very
be a little, you might lose some with steps and different things of that nature as well.
right. I mean, for example, this has, I'm guessing it's a closet that extends out over the garage on the second story. It doesn't have the jut out on the second story that the main level has at the back of the home.
Right, okay.
That was all I wanted.
All right, thank you, yes.
Any other questions by commissioners? Okay, and is there a third one, Dan?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm Shane Grove, the assessor's office. I'm an appraiser. And I had about 30 or so protests in this subdivision. None of the land values were changed, with the exception of this one that I didn't recommend, and it was dropped about $100,000. As you can see on the map on the second page, we have a base lot value of 160, and they're adjusted for size on those two large lakes, with the exception of the outlots. And lot 182 is dropped from 167 for the land to 75,797. And we had a lot sell just 7 lots away on the lake that sold for 160, and it's half the size. And as far as the equalization goes, as you can see, the blue is lots that are 167,000 for size, and this one would be quite a bit under what's typical for the market area.
Just out of curiosity, do you take into account like that particular lot's floodplain elevation and how that factors in?
Yeah, so these are all in the same lake area. So no information was provided to me about the actual elevation of this particular lot. But it'd be odd for one amongst all the other ones on the same strip to be valued differently.
questions for Shane? Okay, if no questions for Shane, Mr. Couch, do you have any comment here?
Okay, I'm glad you brought this one up. Hanson's Lake, land values went up dramatically, I think 160,000 or so. Betty's Lake and the other one. Chris, yeah. They were considered ponds, so their value didn't change. Their value is lower than Hanson's Lake, because Hanson's Lake's a big lake. They were valued on the site basis, which I would, usually waterfront is valued on the front foot of water. So we received a lot of protest about equalization based on the size. And in looking at it, there was some kind of adjustment based on location. We pretty well held tight on all of these until the end. Let me see if I can pull this real quick. The referee found, this is number 1140. Lot value improvement went low. Assessor recently lowered land value on 2005 Craft Drive, which is property referenced on the protest form. Therefore, this change would equalize the three properties. Now, the one I wanted to look at is 1136. $1137, which is 2005 Craft Drive. The assessor's comment: after reviewing the property record, market data, equitable data, protest filing submission, the assessor does not recommend adjustment to the current condition. The 2023 land value was just lowered from 123 to 75,000 a few weeks ago, and approved by the BOE. The overall value is 4% lower than the 2022 value. It just sold for 137. What I found funny, this was on Hanson Lake, where the land was 160,000. You all just lowered this a couple weeks ago to 75,000.
I'm sorry, maybe it's just me, but I'm confused.
Oh,
What?
I'm confused too when I saw this, because I'm going, I didn't think we were going to meet until after the fact. This one is on Hanson Lake. It's been lowered by the Board of Equalization.
Wait, yeah.
Do you want a map up on the computer, Shane?
I think they have access to it. Page 2. It's that lower right-hand corner. That little pond there borders the Platte River. And those were lowered based on recent sales. I just acquired this neighborhood, so I looked at sales over time. And what's been explained to me by homeowners there, this is like a flood damaged pond. It used to be 30 feet deep. Now it's like 6 feet deep with silt. A lot of these lots here need to be built up. Some are dilapidated sheds. I think there's only one person living there around that section. And I do have recent sales of 50,000 was the most comparable recent sale, which is lot 220. And then we had another one, 50,500, 2021. That's lot 225. Then we had one, lot 229, sold for 35,000 in March of 2023. Then we also had one next door, sell for 35,000, July of 24th of 2020. And those are all around the pond. The $137,000 lot outside the time frame, so certainly use that for next year's analysis. So
So Barry was saying we lowered one that was around Hanson's one,
no,
or was he saying we were
he's
lowering
referring
this
to
one?
the flood damaged silt swamp pond.
And this is right across the street from that.
Which lot
It is
was
across the
that?
street.
Lot 1?
I'm sorry.
Which lot did you say?
That sold 220
Around Hanson's Lake 1,
around Hanson's Lake 1, yes.
which is a pond.
Which is, yeah, a pond. It's, from what they tell me, it was a nice little pond, but now it's filled with silt and
From the flood.
from the flood. I drove down there a few times, and there's actually a new construction house being built on stilts on lot 230. That was one of the lot sales of 35,000 in July of 2020, but. And then I think
Which
that
one, I guess, which one did we lower the value on recently?
it was just everything around the pond. On page 2, if you look at the orange and the red, those are the ones that have been lowered. The subject's in Hanson's Lake number 2, which is lot 182, and it's a bright blue, right along the Platte River Drive. So it's on the largest, what appears to be the largest lake there.
And this
It's
is,
a half acre.
and this lot has a garage or whatever that's on,
Yeah,
that's damaged.
it's damaged to me.
Is it repairable or more than likely it'd have to be torn down and,
That I'm not really sure. A couple of those down there in Hanson's Lake, I did call building and planning to see if certain homes were able to be built upon. And some cases, they would be able to, but the house needs to be lifted
okay.
or torn down and rebuilt.
So actually, the structure may be a detriment to the
It
property.
could be, yeah,
not
if
an
he has to
asset.
take it
Yeah.
down, certainly.
Yeah, all right.
Any other questions for Shane? Barry? So were you saying that the reduction of the property was on one of those ones around Hanson's Lake 1?
Yeah, it was, and I'm still kind of confused. And this came to me late, where I would have re-looked at all of Hanson's Lake. And what he just said was, it was submitted to you all to be reduced just recently because of the sales. If it was overvalued, I would have thought they would have come to the Board of Equalization. And that's where he's saying, well, it's on a pond. I don't know. I didn't get this, early enough to analyze it. But where I've seen that the board, this wasn't the only one. It seemed like there was another one to where the assessor said board had recently lowered it. So at that point, I approved this one because there was a couple of others. And that's where I really didn't look at the map
When I say that, this one is lots 233 and 234, 235B on Hanson's Lake. That, to me, it's not on Chris Lake, it's not on Betty Lake, so it's on Hanson's Lake. So basically, when I started looking at these and looking at the ones reduced, we based it on this. Okay.
I see. So, but looking at it now, I mean, Hanson's Lake 1 is pretty significantly different from 2 and 3, and they don't intersect. So, I mean, does that change your opinion on?
And also going back to our previous discussion, it's got damaged property. Was there any reduction at the assessor's office because of the damaged property that was on that January 1?
I could not. I couldn't tell you at the moment.
Well, the structure only has 13,755.
Yeah,
But
so-
it could be another 20,000 to tear it out of there.
Yeah, we got a lump sum adjustment on that for the damage.
When did you do that? After the flood? And so what was it valued and what was the reduction? And are they able to use it for anything right now? Or is it just placard up?
Going off memory, it was just,
Yeah, we just need to look at that. Yeah, so we've got a $17,700 lump sum probably due to, since that flood, I got to look at the prior history on the property record card.
Okay. Do you know what they're using it for now? Or is it
You know what?
usable or is it unusable and just standing there?
Looking at, looking at the parcel that you all lowered, there's the pond Shane was talking about. It's also fronting the Platte River.
So, Barry, looking at it now, the subject property is on Hanson's, what is that, 2? And the one you're looking at that we lowered is on Hanson's 1 and the Platte River.
Correct.
Are those comparable properties, not comparable? Is your opinion changed?
You know what? That's where the appraisers testified their slush ponds. I don't know. I do not know. That's where it's on the Platte River, which I would assume, I mean, Betty and Chris Lake are ponds. I would think that the Platte River is desirable, but I don't know the property of it on anything. The only thing I was saying that you guys had lowered it, and that's where my appraiser compared what you'd lowered with this one and said it's similar.
I see what you're saying, but being pretty familiar with that area down there, if you asked me if I thought 234 was similar to 182, I'd say absolutely not.
Okay.
And that's because I can put all kinds of water recreational vehicles into a lake on 182, and on 234, I can watch the river float by.
Hey, Commissioner, and I am good with it, because this, is, to my knowledge, this is the only one that we changed, and that's where I had caught a protest, and the taxpayer presented a really good protest. There was no correlation on size, there was no correlation on water frontage.
Yeah.
But I was looking at everybody else and talked to a couple. We were keeping it consistent until I caught this one and I looked at it, so I changed it back.
It's logical.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm learning a lot of stuff today. Like, I didn't know that we considered Chris Lake a pond, because that's a pretty dang big pond.
In the assessor's notes, no, in their notes, that is the way they described it.
I mean, to me, a pond is not something you can put a motorboat on, but that's just me, because I live on a pond, no motorboats. So anyways, I don't know, there's also something in it that plays down in this area too, from the carryover from the flood, depending on the extent of the damage and whether you used the federal funds for relief and stuff, and there's just a whole bunch of stuff in play here that kind of confuses the issue, but I think the assessor's probably on point on this one. It's Hanson 2 is the premier lake of the whole complex down there, and if you have a beachfront on that lake, it's probably should be valued at a higher amount.
Any of the other commissioners have any comments or questions on this one?
What's that?
Anybody have comments or questions on this one further? Dan, is that the last of your ones that you needed to present on?
That's everything. Okay. Thank you.
Barry, any other? Okay. And commissioners, any comments or questions on anything else?
I just want to know how we're supposed to, can we deal with these three individually separately, or are we gonna?
Yeah.
I'm gonna help you there, Donald.
Huh?
I'm gonna help you there.
Okay, good.
Yes, you have to take all four of these separate, the four that you heard. And when you make that motion, you've gotta give it to us and what the land value is gonna be, and what the improvements are gonna be, and what the total's gonna be.
Should we do that first? Should we do these four first?
Separately, yes. Then you'll finish off approving the rest of them. For the record, we have to know what value you're setting on that property.
Okay, so the first one we heard was 23?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll make a motion on 2023 to favor the taxpayer's valuation and reduce the property by the amount of the insurance.
26,424.
26,424 for the year 2022.
And you'll leave the land the same.
Yes.
Yes.
For the record, I would just say that we need dollar figures for the land value, the improvement value.
Does anybody have
So
that?
maybe we take a minute to do the math.
That would be.
You got it, Nicole, but Jim, it should be on your
right on the
form there,
sheet.
what the original ones are.
Yeah, I've got the value, but I need to,
Yeah, so the original value was 294, 724, and that we would want to lower that by 26,000, whatever the insurance claim was.
Number, please.
Jim had it.
Commissioner Warren
I
already
think it's
said it on the record. I
26,424.
don't-
Is that correct?
26,424, does that sound good?
yes.
Yeah, that
Okay,
sounds
For a
good.
total of,
Well, just let me run that in my head real quick.
you can do it.
Get your calculator out,
268,
somebody.
Do you agree on 268,
300.
268? Read it to him.
So it'll be a total value of 324,300. Anyone else do
Yes.
the math?
Yeah, that sounds good. That's my motion.
Do you trust us?
I'll second it.
All right, we got that in. Hold on.
All right, that's your motion, okay?
And do we vote on that individually then?
Yes, we gotta vote on each one individually.
So
Okay, I
mo-
sent for votes. Are you guys seeing your votes?
Nope.
No, it was just.
Okay, now
a
I move.
Motion by Commissioner Kelly, second by Commissioner Warren.
Are they seeing them?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
I'm
well,
getting it. There I got
gotta give
it.
him time over here.
Okay.
I got a bunch of papers here in the way.
Any discussion? Please vote.
Ayes 5, nays Mixon. Motion carried. What was the next one? The next one is 232.
On 232,
Yep.
on that one, I'll let somebody else make the motion.
Well, I would motion that it stay with the referee's recommendation.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, I'll second it, just so we can get
Do I
on
need
here.
to
and-
state the values for those?
We'll put them in, but they're
I've
gonna
got
take
them.
them to assess, yeah,
Both.
referees.
Okay. All right.
So moved by Commissioner Warren, seconded by Commissioner Kelly to leave the recommendation the same. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I'm just gonna make a comment. I'm gonna side with the referee, but next year, I want this changed. If this is not a motor home, and if you want to make it a motor home, take the porch off it, take the underground plumbing and everything else that goes in there. So I don't know whatever it's gonna take to fix that, but we need to get that
Maybe
fixed.
legislation.
Okay, I got two votes.
Other comments? I'm going to agree with Commissioner Kelly that it is not a motorhome, which is why I'm going to vote against this motion.
Well,
Please vote.
Ayes 3, nays Burmeister Mixon. Motion carried.
Okay,
Next is 1,000.
Yeah.
That's the second one. I'd make a motion that we stay with the referee's recommendation.
second.
Motion by Commissioner Warren, second by Commissioner Kelly to stay with the referee's recommendation. Any discussion?
I hit it, yeah.
Please vote when you're able.
Ayes 4, nays Mixon. Motion carried. Now it's 1140.
Okay, on protest number 1140, I'm going against the trend here, and I'm going to make a motion that we side with the assessor.
Second.
And that would be, give us what it is.
The assessor's recommended value, help me out, assessor. What were you recommending?
167 is the first page, the recommended.
Yeah, 167, $167,000 on the land. And the
13,755.
building, so the total would be 187,555.
Got
There's no
it,
change to the improvements, it's just on the land.
got it.
The improvements
Correct.
I gave you is correct. Okay,
Correct.
that's fine, we got it, all right.
Motion by Commissioner Kelly, second by Commissioner Mixon. Any discussion? Please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none. Motion carried.
Okay.
Do we have any other individual ones we need to vote on? Okay, then can I move ahead here and make a motion to accept the referee's recommendations as to the assessment on 2023 property valuation protests on residential, commercial, and/or rural properties that are annotated in this spreadsheet, and too many to mention individually, but they are incorporated in 2023 protests 1 through protest 1209 as presented to the Sarpy County Board of Equalization.
Go down, go 7.
No, it's
Go
9.
7.
It's 1209.
I don't know, there's a whole bunch of referee recommendations.
You have an old
in
script,
here.
so.
How'd you
sorry.
get 9? Mine says 7.
Somebody got an old one.
And with the
Mine says
exception,
9.
Okay, we'll go with you.
and with the exception to the changes just made.
Yeah, absolutely. Good, man, I'm glad you're here.
Follow
Get
the
you-
script.
With the exception of the ones we've already addressed
Right.
individually. That's my motion.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Kelly to accept the referee's recommendation, with the exception of the ones we previously addressed, second by Commissioner Klug. Any discussion?
One comment. we appreciate all you guys do. This is a lot of work to get to here. And there's clearly some things that we can do better next year. And I hope we all have been taking good copious notes so that we can improve the process, not only for the assessors and the referees, and the clerk, obviously, but also for the taxpayers. So thank you, Dan, to you and your staff for everything you guys did.
I'll second that, Mr. Kelly.
And I'd like to add that by just thanking Barry and staff.
For sure, for sure.
For
A
everyone.
lot of work both
I want
sides.
to thank you to my staff, because this is Tabby's first year of running this, and she did a beautiful job for you.
Way to go, Patty.
Abby, good job.
And Kendra,
Way
she
to go.
So,
She gonna resign or?
God, don't say we just got one that can run.
We're keeping her.
No.
All right.
Okay, any discussion? Please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carried.
Okay, so now we recess.
Yes.
Well, yeah, you're gonna recess. You need to read your last paragraph.
Yeah.
We have one more vote, guys.
So,
Hold on, guys.
One more
so
vote.
I'll make them,
By this one, you gotta do it by a vote.
yeah, it's,
We're ready.
I'll make a motion that we, at 11:15 a.m. on July 28, 2023, to recess as a Board of Equalization for all residential, commercial, and rural properties with or without improvements, subject to the call of the chair, anytime through 4:45 p.m., August 10, 2023. Should the chair not reconvene prior to that time, then this board shall be adjourned effective at the close of the business day. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Burmeister, seconded by Commissioner Warren. Any discussion? Please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carried.
All right.
The whole year.
How are you?